My name is Parag Bandari. I'm a electronic music producer and DJ based out of New York City, and also a owner of UG Strategies, which is a music and EDM promotions and marketing agency. Joined here with Риצ'ארד Zilma with Amsterdam Dance Event. And we're here to talk about EDM and the explosion that has basically taken over the world. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but I would love to, first and foremost introduce Риצ'ארד, and perhaps you can talk about ADE and what it is, and we can go into some of the topics from there.
Good morning. Still morning, I think. My name is Риצ'ארד Zilma from Holland. I organize the ADE, Amsterdam Dance Event. I think it's now world's leading conference and festival for electronic music. I prefer to say electronic music instead of EDM, somehow. But it's all okay, I think. We attract about 4,000 delegates to the conference from all over the world, basically. People are really focused on doing business if they come over to our conference. We have about 2,000 DJs and acts performing during the festival at 95 locations and attract about 300,000 visitors to the festival. We also organize ADE Playground, which is a kind of day program for clubbers. So, for example, this year we want to do Q&As, at least we try to do this, Q&A with big artists for fans. I think this is nice to be able to ask questions to your heroes during the event.
One things I want to talk about is, obviously in the past year or so, there's been several electronic music / EDM properties that have exploded, basically, at least in the States and worldwide. There's all these festivals popping up. Everyone seems to be cashing in on it. And you've been doing this, and you're one of the pioneers, along with things like Winter Music Conference and a few others. There's the difference between electronic music and the scene in Europe, which has been around for much longer, and what's happening in the States and otherwise, where basically, again, people are trying to catch up. I would love to know what you think about why this is happening and why it took so long for everyone else to catch up in one way, and then also why now has it become this big pop genre. What do you feel like has contributed to that? And what are some of the pros and cons to that?
Yeah, there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think the strength about electronic music is, of course, that you can remix and mix it with every other genre. So that makes this genre really strong, I think. And that is also the basis of why it's so popular now, I think. Because some artists from the dance scene were able to cross over to more pop music. For example, David Guetta is, I think, the guy who jumped to America by crossing over with pop genres. And he had a huge success with it. So if you have success, people will follow. That's quite simple, I think. So this music is going on for, in Holland, 25 years already. And now it's really, really popular, of course. I went last year to Las Vegas, to EDC. Yeah. And it was interesting to see. I took a taxi to Electric Daisy Festival. And the taxi driver was really saying, yeah, it's so funny, this new music comes up. And I said, ho, ho. It's going on for 25 years already. So, and he was really surprised because it was not really out there over the years. So because the ride was to the festival for 1 hour, we were able to educate this taxi driver for 1 hour, this poor guy. And but it's funny, and we went over to EDC, and it was because I really wanted to see how massive it now is in the States. And it's basically incredible to see one DJ putting his hands up, and 50 or 60,000 people are enjoying the music.
I think it's when I started UG, this was in 2003, this was 10 years ago. And even back then, it was, at least in the States, it was always like, the running joke of the industry was, oh, dance music's next, it's going to be the next big thing. And when we started the company, we were trying to get myself and a few other DJ friends of mine down to Winter Music Conference in Miami. And we didn't have any money, we didn't have a label, we had just, put out a few records on like Skint and FFRR, but didn't have like tour support or anything like that. So I actually started the company with JetBlue Airways, which is an airline in the United States. And I reached out to JetBlue to get them to sponsor, us, artists like Tom Stefan, who's been around forever, Roger Sanchez, Junior Sanchez, Felix the House Cat, all those guys, right? These guys are all been respected electronic music artists, but for the first time, or at least, at least in my career, or at least the people that I've been working with, brands are starting to get involved. They're starting to see this new trend, or at least new in the sense of corporate marketing and stuff like that. So we ended up doing this showcase in Miami for the conference, sponsored by JetBlue. And we had, Tom, we had Junior, we had Roger, all these guys play this event. And kind of quite similarly to your cab driver experience, our client was like, this is great, I love this new type of music. And it just turned into this never-ending sort of machine where all these brands are starting to get involved in the scene. But the music itself has never really changed. It's always been there. It's been more the reaction to it. And I think what you just said is a really good point, that the reason why electronic music has become such a major popular genre is because it's pretty much the only genre where you can cross over. You can get remixes from DJs for hip hop artists, for rock artists, for country artists, for all kinds of stuff. And
yes, exactly. Because it's in the DNA of this music to collaborate anyway. Because from the old pop rock scene, people were bringing out albums, but in this scene, people are used to bring out tracks and to collaborate with each other and to do remixes. So everybody simply understands how it is to work together. And also, I think, because there's no language involved, basically, in this type of music, it's even more easy to collaborate on an international scale and to bring your music out there, which people understand. And also, I think in the States, I heard stories about that before this urban music was really popular, rap music, but that especially the girls were really they didn't like it anymore because it became more and more aggressive and stuff like that. And electronic music, I think, is more positive. It's about celebrating, and it's more positive experience for people to go to and to celebrate on a festival. So that's why more and more girls, I think, went to electronic music festivals. And if the girls go, the boys will follow.
Now, you touched upon something really important. You used the word community. I mean, I think, again, besides the fact that there's very little language barriers and whatnot, electronic music is really the only genre where you can you can play each other's music and help build a community around that, right? I remember going on tour with Identity Festival, which is a 20-city tour in the States. We were on one stage, and then there was 2 other stages, and we had done a remix for a group called Nervo, and that same track was remixed by like 3 or 4 other people also on that tour, guys like Steve Aoki and Cascade and a few others. And I remember like playing our set and then like going back to our tour bus and walking through the different stages and hearing that same track played by all the different DJs. Everyone's playing the same freaking song. And but the interesting about it, it wasn't necessarily just playing that same track, but each one of us had our own twist to it. So we're either doing live mixing or we're mixing different tracks along with it. So again, it's really the only genre that you can do that. You can't have like Pearl Jam playing a Soundgarden song in the middle of their set. Oh, they do, but you can't. It's not the same vibe. You can walk around a festival and you can hear 5 different DJs, quote unquote, playing the same song, but they're not really playing the same song. They're playing it in their own way. They're adding their own style and their own twist. And I think that is a major reason why, or at least from the community aspect, it's turned into like. Back in the day, it was a counterculture. That community was a counterculture against boy bands and hair metal and all kinds of stuff. And because of that counterculture has grown and grown and grown, and now it's become mainstream. But that sense of community still hasn't been lost. And that's why I think we were talking about the bubble being bursted or whatever. I think in some ways the bubble will burst, but not... It's not just going away. It's almost just begun in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think so because, for example, a few years ago you had the track "I Will Follow," for example, from Licky Lee, was done by so many remixes, but those tracks they reach out globally on lots of festivals and parties. So this is the only genre where probably in Australia and America and Europe people start dancing on the same track, maybe at the same moment. And you will never see that with a band like Pearl Jam. Yeah. They are there, or they are not there, or on the radio perhaps, but the celebration with music. So it's also becoming a great memory lane for a lot of people, those tracks.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now you also get like you also get the backlash from people who aren't necessarily fans of the industry or fans of the genre. They'll say, oh, you play other people's music, or you're just pushing play, or you're doing this, you're doing that, and it's not that at all. It's actually the exact opposite. We're being able to leverage and collaborate with, I think it's a better word, with all sorts of different artists to really define your own sound as a producer. Yes, there's copycats, and yes, there's people who basically rip off other artists and all of that. And I think maybe more so because of technology you're able to do that. But I think that is a very small part of it. I think the majority of the industry and the majority of the genre is, again, going back to that sense of community, really has become this beast that's always been there. It's been a sleeping giant, and now it's become this massive, pop genre, where now the counterculture is the rock bands and the hip hop groups, or not necessarily hip hop, but more like rock and alternative bands that, they're now the counterculture to pop, which is now electronic music.
Which is also an interesting development. If you now go to alternative pop rock festivals like Roskilde or in Holland Lowlands or those festivals, you see more and more DJs over there as well. So 20 years ago...
Warped Tour.
Exactly.
Warped Tour is one of their huge, EDM stage now. Exactly.
So 20 years ago, the audience was really divided in, I hate electronic music or I love it. And now people keep understanding it, and it's for them easy to step between all kinds of genres. So that's also, I think, very positive now for the electronic music scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk more about some of the marketing and corporate stuff, but do you guys have any questions so far? Is it too early?
It's not a question, but I was just thinking just now, as we talked about the rock music and the black and EDM and dance, that's a fact. Until
Agree.
Chemical Brothers,
Sure.
Prodigy, Beastie Boys, Fat
No, I agree. I mean, I'm. Oh, he was just saying more that like, yeah. I mean, it's basically rock and dance have been around for have been around for a while, and actually my group is a live band. We're an electronic punk band. We
Skrillex now, I think he
totally. Yeah, totally. Skrillex comes from a emo rock band, and he's not necessarily doing that, but that same musical knowledge.
from Israel is a band called Disgusting,
Yeah,
which has been around for a while. It's trance.
yeah. It's interesting. So what he's saying is basically the genres of music have been around, have been collaborating for some time, right? Our latest record we just put out on Ultra, which is the biggest dance label, but then we're going to go on tour with Marky Ramone, which is a legendary punk rocker. You got bands like the Bloody Beetroots that are a perfect example. They basically are a live electronic punk band. And I think that, maybe 10 years ago, I mean, even like Prodigy and Crystal Method, not necessarily live bands. There's not 5 dudes up on stage, sweating and rocking around. But then you did have bands like, Kasabian or, Daft Punk to a degree. But even them, they're not. It's not a live band in the traditional sense. So I think because of everything that we were just talking about, then there's those folks, like whether it's us or Bloody Beetroots or whoever, that are a live band producing. I saw a band last night, Benefound Music or something. They were playing at Breakfast Club, Bonafide at Breakfast Club. Holy shit, they were amazing, and it's a full live band. Drums, guitar, you name it. So I think now, because of everything that we've been talking about, it's possible to do that. It's possible for if you grow up in the past, 10, 15 years, and, you love Pearl Jam, and you love, Daft Punk and Crystal Method and Chemical Brothers, I think only now, it's always been possible to do it, but I think now it's commercially possible to do it and have success doing it. And again, that dance music helps bridge the gap between the two genres. And I also think because of that, there's the whole corporate sponsorship and marketing world where it's becoming much more comfortable for brands to get involved in the electronic music scene. Maybe it's because the guys behind writing the checkbooks, they grew up listening to bands or whatever. I was just showing Ritchard, our most recent campaign is with Citi Credit Cards and Mad Decent Block Party, which is like Diplo and all those guys and Major Lazer. And I remember the client being like, this is going to be our first entrance into this thing called EDM. And I'm like, where the hell you been for the past 20 years? What are you talking about? So it's like, for a brand like them to finally, it's the credit card, one of the obviously biggest banks in the world, for them to embrace this genre and this community, it depends who you ask, but I think it's a very positive thing. What's your take on sponsorships, actually? Because, I know you guys work with a lot of different brands as well. But
Yeah, of course. Over the years, we more and more work with brands like Pioneer or Native Instruments, those kind of brands who are already in the game, of course. And they are interested because we also attract business people and producers and a lot of artists. So, yeah, now you see more and more brands get on board. For this year, for the first time, we signed with Samsung, for example. So I had to throw away my iPhone. And my iPad is still here, but
we don't have to let them know that.
no, but it's interesting to see that they understand what we can offer now to brands, and also because of the elements I said before, we are able to create a positive vibe for a brand, I think.
Have you seen a difference though? Because having been doing Amsterdam Dance Event for a while, certainly before this explosion in the States. Like the example I was using was City embracing electronic music in the States because it's the new hot thing in the States, or at least, again, just talking from a marketing perspective, it's the new hot thing. But it's been going on in Europe to that level for so much longer. Have you seen a difference in the reaction of sponsors? Are sponsors coming to you more now so than they have in the past 5-10 years?
It's not that easy that they are coming. There are still sponsors. They say, "Oh, I can send some free drinks,"
right,
and then we are your sponsor. So it's always funny. So it's because they are really demanding. Of course, it's hard to work with sponsors still. But yeah, we now know we have something to offer.
It's
so
easier.
it's more easy,
Yeah.
definitely. I also used to work a lot with the government, for example. It's also very interesting. When we started, I had a meeting after 3 years of the event with the city of Amsterdam, and there were 2 people from the city of Amsterdam and one younger guy joining the meeting, and I was explaining my plans with this event for the future and what it could bring the city, and they were not really interested, but the guy who was also sitting there during the meeting was an intern of the Department of Economic Affairs, and he didn't say anything the whole meeting, but at the end he said, "Yeah, this weekend I was in the club in Amsterdam too, and a lot of people used drugs." I said, "Okay, thank you." So it took me an hour to convince the city of Amsterdam, and this guy said they are only using drugs in clubs. So it was quite challenging, but after all those years, I have a more strong relation. And now they invite me for all kinds of dinners and to the Queen and stuff like that, because they see how important it is now. We bring about 35 million euro into the economy of Amsterdam, for example. So the money they give us, it's only a small amount of that. So they recognize it also because this scene is a creative industry, and they love the term creative industry, and also they love that we are able to give talent a platform.
I think it's a good point too. Like the reason why a company like City has taken so long, I guess, to embrace this is because that stigma of rave culture is still there. It definitely is still there, but it's certainly way less than it was 5-10 years ago. Again, I remember doing the JetBlue event, and I just got lucky because the guy at the other end of the email, he was a young guy, he was a DJ, he wanted to go to Miami and party, so it was easy. But they were one of the few brands, at least for the Winter Music Conference, to really get involved with it. And again, I think it's because the guy was a DJ, but he's also, they just started service to Fort Lauderdale, so there was a reason to do it. Early 2000s still was kind of hard for us to get major brands on board for things at the Winter Music Conference. And then maybe mid-2005, 2006, that's when it really started to explode. You got a brand like Heineken coming in and producing Ultra. You got brands like Red Bull and Red Bull DJ Music Academy and all these guys getting involved. But it did take a while for that to happen, at least in the States. Now it's everywhere. Now you've got Ultra Europe, you got Ultra Korea, you got Ultra New Jersey, you name it. It's just all over the place. There's no Ultra New Jersey, I just made that up. But you've got like all these different festivals. You got Warped Tour building an EDM stage. And that's, presented by Vans, probably the biggest sneaker company in the world. So I think that because of this counterculture and because of this sense of community, and definitely financially, obviously, I mean, you got festivals like EDC and AD just, pumping millions and millions of dollars into the economy, which is not deniable. But I think the stigma of rave culture has significantly diminished because of that. It's still there. It'll always be there. But I think just like in any other music industry or genre, there will be there. It will be there. So I'd like to, ask you, what do you think is next as far as the scene? Do you think it's reaching a plateau? Do you think that bubble is going to burst? Or do you think it's going to morph itself into something else that will continue the trajectory?
I think definitely will stay for years, though it's now becoming a really fight market, especially for the big promoters. Ultra EDC, they cross over to Europe, for example. Some Dutch promoters cross over to America, so they're all after a certain kind of market. But yeah, I think that there is definitely a big future for electronic music, especially because people are used to go to punk bands, and after that they go to a DJ, for example. So it's going to be stronger and stronger upcoming years, I think. Especially because it's, if you look to markets like China, for example, I think there's still a lot of potential for the scene.
Absolutely, and I think that as far as the bubble bursting and it becoming this huge thing, you've got both the positive and negative of a company like Live Nation going and gobbling everything up. They just bought Sensation, they bought Hard, they have a major stake in
that was
EDC.
SFX.
SFX Live Nation, yeah, same. So, there's talk about, is Live Nation going to screw it up again? Are they going to make it such a big, massive corporate genre where that counterculture that was electronic music 10 years ago, is there going to be a new counterculture to fight against that?
Isn't it already like that?
I think it is.
After show parties at the casinos, it used to be hip-hop, right?
Yep.
Now it's EDM.
Yeah.
And it's all corporate.
Yeah.
Like companies, money.
Yeah.
What happened? Like, you're talking about the explosion. What happened? Like, what was the trigger of all this bubble, like, pumping up? And
I think it was just a sleeping giant. I think it was always there. And I think that, over the past 5-10 years, it's become this growing counterculture where it got to the point where somewhere along the road it just exploded. Something happened. I'm gonna refer to a good friend of mine, Steve Aoki. Okay, he started Dim Mak Records, and he started Dim Mak when I started UG, and we used to play each other's parties together, and there was still that he was coming from like an indie rock side still. So it was still like in early 2000s, you had bands like The Strokes and bands like The Vines, and those were like, that was the big stuff. But then, his Dim Mak parties and everything that we were doing together was, he would discover bands like Block Party, which is a great like sort of middle barrier between indie rock bands and dance music. And again, that's the early 2000s, maybe 2003, 4, 5, 6. And then gradually, at least him as an artist and a label head has moved more towards straight up electronic music, which has been around way before those bands. I mean, you got artists like Felix the Housecat and Armin van Buuren and all these guys that were doing it, way before the Strokes. So it kind of went in a full circle. But because of people like him and guys like Diplo and Mad Decent, or the Fool's Gold guys and everything like that, it kind of went around the circle. Whereas now it's a lot of the music they're putting out now isn't really indie rock at all, or it's but he's got a lot of those too, but the majority of the releases that are coming out are electronic, straight up electronic. So I think it was bridging the gap between those indie bands and electronic music, and then then everyone kind of following suit. And then the undeniable fact that the community itself was just exploding.
But you can see like the explosion of the music itself and the explosion of all the sponsorships and all the all the media started talking about what happened, what is Ultra, what is, I don't know, about 2 years ago, I don't think that too many people in Israel knew the Tomorrowland or
Right.
on YouTube, the streaming, everybody's sitting in, instead of being there, sitting in the house and, putting the volume up and start dancing to hard or whatever, and enjoying it, but it's like, it's not a question, but what happened to all the world start talking about it? Because the music has been there.
Yeah.
You're right.
Isn't there something else?
But,
Right.
yeah.
Isn't there something about how hip-hop basically started to lose its hold?
I agree.
Hip-hop started to lose its hold on the market in the US. And even if you go to any hip-hop clips on YouTube, you start seeing comments like, this isn't real hip-hop,
Right.
What happened to hip-hop?
It's a very good point.
Hip-hop lost its grip, and
dude,
what was waiting to come after it was EDM.
Totally. I think hip hop being the main sort of pop genre in the States, again, mid 2000s, you're absolutely right. I mean, the hip hop itself started to get too commercial, too gangster, too violent, too, it was too much, right? It was starting to lose its hold, its relevance, its counterculture. So there needed to be something else. Hip hop, electronic music came from hip hop. That's where you turn it from 118 to 128 to 130. It came from hip hop. So I think you've got this need for a counterculture, because that's essentially what music is and where it's come from, and to fill that void, So,
by the way, also EDM. I mean, they call it EDM now. I think that's really funny, like an ATM or something.
Yeah.
But dance music, was always big in the States. Even if you go back to like one of the biggest records in dance music, Black Box, Right on Time, it was a massive hit in the States. Made a lot of money. They're still earning royalties every year for that, even now. You had like Tommy Boy was releasing dance music in the 90s. Very successfully. Radical Records. They were selling hundreds of thousands of units in compilations. So dance music has been successful in the States before.
But the market has definitely changed because people sell less records, of course. And now people are willing to pay $60 to see DJs like Afrojack, for example, and they pay it with thousands and thousands of people. So
only because they can't download it for free,
Yeah, it's an experience. So that definitely has changed the whole game, and so the whole label scene is more about promoting the artist, of course. I remember that Dutch DJ Tiesto. He was the first DJ who came up with his own logo, and the more underground scene, credible scene, were thinking, his ego is becoming bigger and bigger because he's creating his own logo. But he was.
Whereas bands have been doing that since the 70s.
The Ramones, for example, the guy who designed the logo just died a few weeks ago, I think. So they created their own brand. So I think that was definitely a turning point in the scene to do that.
By the way, I have a question for you also. What do you think about Tel Aviv? What do you think about clubbing here, the music, the ED, do I have to call it that? Dance music scene. I don't want to use EDM. What do you think about
dance
the dance
music that is electronic?
Because Tiesto himself, more or less made his name here in Tel Aviv, didn't he? In Israel. Have you come to Tel Aviv a lot, or is it your first time?
It's my first time, I'm afraid. I travel quite a lot, but this is my first time in Israel, so I'm not able to give a proper answer to that.
On the little that you've seen here, do you think that Tel Aviv could become a kind of place for conventions like this to become bigger, even a little bit similar to ADE?
That takes a long time, of course, because we worked on this for 18 years, to give an example. So I think, you have to support this event on a local base, of course. So if you think we need a place like this, please support a convention like this. It's really important. It will be able to create an international network, which is really important. Though you can connect with people via email or whatever, it's still important to be connected with the right people in real life. And to learn from each other, it's important, of course. And it takes about I think, 3 years to say more about the opportunities for this, because the first year people will come over, they are excited and see, okay, what's in it for me. The second year they think, okay, this is it, and the third year, yeah, it has to be done.
Anyone else?
That's okay.
Okay.
I'm a musician for more than 20 years now, especially I came from hip hop. I think what you talked about is very important about what the electronic tools that we are using for 2 decades now, with the sampling and everything, and I think it's only natural that the electronic music will be the main player. I think it's very natural. But my question is that in this world, because I think it's a bit, I feel overflooding with too much information. What do you think will make someone, this person special over another one? Let's say we organize a festival, you hear, I don't know, hundreds of bands or artists. What will make you point this particular artist, this particular band?
I think it's not necessarily any different in any genre, right? I think that if you're doing a punk festival, you're getting 200 punk submissions, you're getting whatever. So it's the quality of the music first and foremost. I think with dance music, obviously it's the quality of your production, it's the quality of your mixing, etc. And again, just like any other genre, it's what you guys can bring to the table as far as an artist that gets booked on a festival. I mean, you have to have a fan base, you have to be able to sell tickets, blah, blah, blah. I think it's harder with electronic music because the technology does allow, and I think that's what you're getting at, the technology allows you to basically mimic anyone that you want. If you're a bad singer in a punk band, you can't necessarily get away from that. So I hear what you're saying. That's the question mark, I think, for the industry, because that's why I do, ask why and if the bubble will burst, because there is a level of authenticity that's kind of lacking in electronic music, or at least the possibility of that, right? If I have the right software, I can make myself sound like any DJ I want to. But then I have to back it up when I go on stage. So I think that from a production standpoint, there is that veil, unfortunately. But from a performance standpoint, you got guys like Feed Me, who's like, I'm not going to DJ anymore because all I want to do is focus on production or whatever. Guys like Dead Mouse, who, basically mocks himself in the genre. I happen to agree with a lot of things that he says. But I think that the first and foremost, and if you're speaking specifically about electronic music, it's got to be your quality of your production. And there has to be some sort of originality to the production as well. And then you also have to have a fan base. You have to be able to prove yourself and bring something to the table that no other DJ can, regardless of if you guys sound similar or not.
Yeah, I think besides that, it's really important to create a story behind who you are as an artist, so people can understand, okay, this is the guy from Israel who lost his father or mother, or come up with some stories. It's really important that people feel make another story. Now, a better story, more positive. No, but it's really important to create a story behind who you are as an artist and find ways, even if you are lying, who cares? Yeah, radio is still important, but the strength.
But even to get there, there needs to be some sort of difference. There needs to be some sort of unique, special thing that's going on, not just within your music, because again, with technology, you can make it sound however you want. But there has to be something else. There has to be the physical aspect. You as a person, you as a DJ, your fans, all that stuff. Stuff that basically people can't copy from you, right?
Hi, my name is Gal. I'm an electro dubstep glitch producer from here. I think I noticed two main things in EDM lately. That first of all, the fact that there's no much of a variety in EDM. You can listen to top 100 best-selling records in Beatport, and last year it was more of a melodic thing, like Swedish House Mafia style, and now it's more like a big room Nari and Milani kind of groove, and you get the feeling that you always get more of the same, and there's no variety at all. So there's this, and the second thing is that there's always a feeling like there's some sort of close group. You know, Hardwell and Avicii and Zed, Porter Robinson, I don't know. I mean, there's a group that you can see in all festivals, Ultra Music and Tomorrowland and Creamfield, I think now. And I mean,
yeah,
so,
I think that's
yeah.
That's the strength of the music industry behind it. So you have to understand how the scene works, who are the key players who are able to make the difference in your career. So it's really important. So that's why Hardwell, they worked together with David Guetta, and he brought the international stage for this kind of DJs, and they make deals out of this as well. So it's a business to promote the big name DJs. They promote new names, and there's business behind this. So there are labels like Ultra. They have a lot of power in this scene. So you really have to know how the industry works and who do you need to know, and that's why conferences like this are important, so you can connect with those people.
What would you recommend to a new producer that comes to ADE, for example, such as myself, how to prepare to the conference in order to make this, I don't know, significant for my career, for example?
Yeah, I think at the ADE, basically most of the people who are in the game are at the convention, so it's really important to prepare yourself to reach out before you go, because people need to know your name several times to remember, and probably with a good story behind it, they remember it more easy, of course. And yeah, be nice, be friendly, but keep on trying for years. And if you go to a convention like ADE, probably nobody knows you, and you're sitting in the corner and waiting, and but you have to connect with people, go for it. The second year, probably people think, oh, I know you, and they probably forgot your name, and after 3 years, 4 years, they remember you, and try to connect with all those people over and over again. And it takes a lot of investment, of course, but I think it's more and more important nowadays, because everybody can make music, so you have to create the difference.
I think it's a really good point. Definitely reach out beforehand, before you go to a conference, using whatever resources you have. I remember being at South by Southwest, and we had 2 shows. One was opening for Crystal Method, where we were DJing. The other one was playing with La Castlevania, where we had the full live band play. And there was this girl that was at both shows, it was La Castlevania's friend or something, that the first show, Crystal Method, we were just behind the DJ booth DJing. And the second show, we were on stage playing with a live band, and they were like, oh, I remember you from that show with La Castlevania. Whereas the show with Crystal Method was 10 times the amount of people. So it was a much bigger, better show for us, but we weren't recognized because we were behind the booth, and we're not, we didn't do the outreach. We got the gig because of Crystal Method and blah, blah, blah. And that was an eye-opener, I think that if you don't have that dual, identity, you should definitely reach out as much as you can to people, whether it's the club promoter, whether it's the festival organizer, whether it's, a PR person, a label, whatever. You may not get a response, you may get a response. But I think that's one of the most important things, especially for DJs in electronic music, because it is so similar, or there is the trap of being so similar, where you're not recognized necessarily from standing on stage, but you're recognized from your music. So they don't know what you look like, or they don't know who you are. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? I think you really need to try and make that personal connection, because you don't necessarily have that when you're behind a DJ booth.
Yeah, you also have to promote your name more out there if you're doing a DJ set, I think.
Yeah.
If you watch television, you always see a talking head and then his name and his company. But if there are so many bands at South by Southwest and X, it's really, and you always lose your schedule.
Yeah.
If you are around, so it's really important to promote it. And if you do a showcase, make sure you have people in the audience, friends who promote you even more. Talk about it positive. And one good trick if you go to conferences like ADE for the first time, just stand close to the guy who knows everybody, and make sure he will introduce you to his friends and network. That's why I always like to do, and I always share my network as well with people. So I always used to stand next to the guy who knows everybody. So
So I'll stay close to you.
Yeah, I'm going to move over a little bit, actually. Okay, we're being kicked off. Any more questions? One more? Make Jeremy sweat a little bit?
I have one.
No?
Do you have any interesting names that it takes? Can you recommend on some interesting names that can take chances with new artists in this industry?
Interesting names that, as far
Like
as what?
sponsors or labels, or who do take chances with new guys?
Steve
New producers.
Dimac. I mean,
Steve?
he's known for breaking unknown artists. What's
Again.
that? It's Steve Aoki and Dimac. I mean, he's
Aoki.
known for and I use him as one example. There's plenty of others. Actually, Malcolm from Glastonbury. He was talking about yesterday, where he books a lot of unknown artists just because of his love for the music. I think you're always going to find both. I think you're going to find the we call them gatekeepers yesterday, that basically will follow a trend, or someone like Malcolm who has the freedom to really book whatever he wants because the festival's already sold out before anyone knows who's playing it. A lot of labels you can submit music to. You can submit unsolicited music to, which is, for indie labels possible, for major labels, not. Ultra? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's
definitely.
really important to know that
Who?
the professional
Ultra Records.
the professional people in this business, they have to be open-minded and have to listen to new music, because everybody is looking for a new hit and a new artist. So don't forget that.
Alrighty. Thanks.
All right, just a few quick announcements. So this is your lunch break. If you ordered lunch, and only people that actually ordered lunch, go to the Akum House. Your lunch is there. You need your pink little ticket, and you can get sorted out. We have our little Bedouin hangout area behind Akum on the Namal side, and we're starting back up again at 1 o'clock. So check your programs or take another one, and thanks very much.